sermon has a prologue, but today's does. This prologue has 3 points. First, today we will be exploring mental health, and specifically Elijah's experience of depression. It is important that we talk openly and honestly about mental health in the pulpit and the church. That we acknowledge that God's creation has so many facets and that each has a holy place in the house of God. Second, in exploring Elijah's experience of depression, I will offer some reflection of my own experience with depression. I am sharing this to provide a perspective, and I feel it's important to lift up for you that I have a strong network of support in my spouse and family and friends, and a really great doctor. That is to say, I am well cared for, should the need for care arise. And so my experience is a testimony, and I hope an invitation to deeper relationship. Third, and most importantly, let me say this. Mental illness and seeking treatment are not sin or weaknesses. Licensed counselors and social workers, psychiatrists and psychologists, medication and treatment, these are holy things. If you need it, please ask for help. If you are receiving care, please continue your treatment plan. And with that, let us hear these words from 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 4 through 9. But Elijah himself went a day's journey out into the wilderness. He came to a solitary broom tree and sat down, and he called out to God. He asked that he might die. It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly, an angel touched him and said to him, Elijah, get up and eat. He looked around, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and he drank, and he lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him and said, Elijah, get up and eat. Otherwise, the journey will be too much for you. And so Elijah sat up and ate and drank. Then he went out from beneath the broom tree. He continued in the strength of that mood for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, What are you doing here, Elijah? Holy God, in every word and breath and heartbeat, may we seek your understanding, your light, your love. We meet Elijah on the run, fueled by adrenaline and fear. In 1 Kings 18, Elijah's prophetic word, a mountaintop moment, if there ever was one, calling down fire from heaven on Mount Carmel to demonstrate God's power over Baal, results in a seriously angry Queen Jezebel. In the verses before those that we've just heard, the threat has been made that Jezebel plans to kill Elijah in one day's time. When this message reaches Elijah, he runs. Fearing for his life, he flees to Beersheba, an area under Judah's control, beyond Jezebel's reach. And even though really he should be safe, he doesn't feel it. And he doesn't stop running there. He goes beyond Beersheba and this is where our reading begins, another day's journey into the wilderness. Elijah is only human, and eventually the intensity of his exhaustion and the depths of his fear overwhelmed him. Finally, in the middle of the wilderness, he finds a broom tree and collapses beneath it, saying to God, "Take my life, God. It's too much. I'm done." And then he goes to sleep. Sarah Cohen, her Presbyterian minister, helps us to understand Elijah's words more deeply. She says that the first understanding is that Elijah is referring to his dead ancestors, that he literally wishes to join them in death. But Elijah is also referring to his ancestors in the prophetic vocation, specifically Moses, who also complained in the wilderness and asked the Lord if he could die. Elijah is no better than his prophetic predecessors, who also had their heavy burdens that they had to bear on their own. Elijah is overwhelmed, and death is preferable to what he feels he is facing. Elijah's cry carries within it so much weight. Even if we're not prophets calling down fire on mountaintops, we too may know that same exhaustion, that same despair that stops Elijah in his tracks. The National Alliance on Mental Illness has the numbers. 1 in 5 adults in the United States lives with a mental illness at some point in their lifetime. Mental illness can be unreasonable, illogical, and it can result in people forgetting who they truly are, forgetting that they are beloved and made in God's image. And despite the prevalence of mental illness in our society, to live with mental illness is still an experience that is often full of isolation, shame, stigma, and loneliness. I was 13 years old when my fingertips first brushed the branches of the broom tree. When I found myself stepping into the wilderness of depression. Unlike Elijah, my depression was not preceded by a monumental high. Instead, it was a slow settling in until I found myself seated beneath that broom tree more often than not, like it was equal parts a cage and a home. When I was 16, I made a similar request as Elijah did. "It's too much, God. I don't think I can do it." How many of God's beloved have spoken those same words? Thankfully, God sends help. When Elijah cries out in the wilderness and lies down to sleep, God doesn't rebuke him or pass judgment. God doesn't send the angel to yell at him, but instead sends the angel to sit beside Elijah in his vulnerability. Suddenly, an angel touched him and said, "Elijah, get up and eat." Have you ever been woken up wildly by the slightest touch? Imagine if you're in the wilderness where no one else is supposed to be, and you feel a hand on your shoulder. Elijah looked around, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. And even startled as he may have been, having been woken up like that, Elijah does the hard work of listening to the angel. When you're in the deepest valley of depression, eating a sandwich, remembering to drink water, getting out of bed, this is hard work. But Elijah eats and drinks and lays down again. I've got a list of angels. Number 1 on that list is my mom, who, much like the angel in this story, would actually say to me, "Maddie, get up and eat. Did you drink any water today?" Which I am sure is synonymous with, "I love you." She would also say, "I love you," and then tell me all of the reasons I was worthy of the love of others, of God, and of myself. And she did this work almost every day for years as I navigated depression and treatment in high school. Angels are patient and persistent. After Elijah lays back down, the angel wakes him again and says, "Elijah, get up and eat. Otherwise, the journey will be too much for you." Even if the experience of depression or mental illness is not your own, this story offers some insight into how we might be present when mental illness takes up residence in the lives of those we love. The angel gives one example in offering food and water, but most importantly, the angel offers presence and a gentle affirmation that Elijah's story does not end there. One of the most powerful and life-giving things we can do, especially in times when mental illness is part of the picture, is to remind one another who and whose we are. We are beloved, holy, and made in the image of God. We can tell our stories and the stories of God's struggling prophets like Elijah and Jonah and even Christ himself weeping and begging in the garden. It can be so helpful to people experiencing mental illness to receive affirmation and unconditional love and welcome in our church communities. That might be some of the best and simplest advice on welcoming folks with mental illness and the fullness of all of our lives into community. Welcome people as they are, wherever they are on life's journey. While depression is part of my life experience, I am grateful to say that it is not actively impacting my present. And now, having been through it, I can look back and see the growth and transformation that occurred since my broom tree season, and even because of it. I can see in my own story that the cracked places were not just broken places, but the places where God broke in. There were moments where angels surrounded me, like when my history teacher came over after I had missed a week of school, too tired and sad to get out of bed. She brought homework, and because it was right before my 16th birthday, actually cake. And she brought a book that helped her through her own hard times. And in sharing her experience and what had helped her, she showed me that I was not alone. Now I can say that this experience isn't something to be ashamed about. As I've worked in different communities and sat with folks in their broom tree moments, I know that this was a holy and sacred part of my journey that prepared me to be present to others in the way that my angels had been present to me. The angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched Elijah and said, "Get up and eat. Drink some water, otherwise the journey will be too much for you." God wasn't done with Elijah. This time under the broom tree is not just a detour on the road between the fires on Mount Carmel and the cave on Mount Horeb. Instead, it becomes a place where Elijah is transformed, where he is strengthened for his journey with the aid of his angel, and where he is prepared for a deeper experience of God's divinity and presence. In the midst of this valley, Elijah learns to see God in the cracks, to listen for God in the still, small voice. Beloved ones, wherever you are on your journey today, whether you are on a mountaintop or beneath the broom tree or somewhere in between, remember that you are created and worthy, loved and holy, known by God. And remember to drink some water. Amen.